Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm delighted to be able to welcome you to the grand final of the ESU Public Speaking Competition for 2022 here at the marvellous Churchill College, Cambridge. I'm thrilled to see such a large audience, and especially I'd like to extend a warm welcome to my headmaster, Mr. Woolsey, who has come especially from London for this afternoon. However, and I hope this presentation is more than satisfactory for my prefect application next year. However, that's the last joke that I'll be making this afternoon, as I'd like to set a rather different tone for this presentation to the semi-final earlier today, as those who saw that know I like a good joke. However, the topic that Sophia will be speaking on later is a rather serious one, and it is the UK government failing those with disabilities. She's from Pate's Grammar School, and she decided to speak on this topic as she enjoys taking part in activism and believes it's a very recent topic due to the pandemic and would like to give a voice to those who can't speak their own opinions. Also joining me today is Olivia, who will be our questioner, and she's passionate about this topic as she has a vested interest, and so do we all really, because 20% of the UK population has a disability, so she's a great candidate to offer her questions. My name's Charlie Tebbett, I'll be your chair, and well, without further ado, I'd like to invite Sophia to take the stage.
A young boy, excited for his first day of school, stands at the entrance. He can't wait to go to his lessons and make friends. All he has to do is get up the stairs. He is centimetres from the door, but he cannot step up. He is one of the 1.2 million people in the UK who use a wheelchair, who don't receive adequate government aid. He is one of the 14 million people in the UK with a disability. 14 million people that the government is failing. As he sits there and wonders to himself, should I fly? Should I jump? Should I wait for someone to come and help me? Enter the government. The year is 2021, and the government has just announced their new Levelling Up campaign with a £57 million disability budget. Can you imagine all the doors this can unlock, which have been closed for generations due to stigma and negligence? But of the millions spent, not a penny went into disability accommodations. How could this be? Well, you are the government, and you are creating a new campaign on helping disabled people. Do you, A, hire more experienced disabled people for their wisdom, or B, hire younger, disabled people of the future? The right answer, of course, is option C. Hire no disabled people and ask able-bodied people to act in the educational material. What's more, let's call them childish, unable to work, to be pitied. Great. Now there's been a 25% rise in the disability unemployment gap. Exeunt the government. From a young age, government school systems fail disabled children. A child who is deaf would be taught to lip read, an inaccurate and exhausting activity. Their voice silenced. A child with autism will be taught to sit still and make eye contact. That child and their future restrained. A child with hip problems will be forced to sit on the floor instead of being allowed a cushion, just so that their classmates don't feel out of place. This may seem preposterous, but this is the reality for thousands of children in our school systems. 1 in 5 people in the UK have a disability, and as these young children grow up and enter the workplace, they will be failed, time and time again, by government programmes and employers turning down legal accommodations. How would you feel if something as small as a chair support cost you your employability? Everybody has accommodations, whether legal or unwritten. It could be our friends knowing we drink our tea with sugar instead of milk, or employers knowing we go home early on Tuesdays to pick up our kids. The only difference between able-bodied and disabled accommodations is the generations of miseducation and stigma, which has painted them as incapable burdens, and still continues to. Now, some may say that these accommodations are simply too expensive to provide, but a recent report found that they can increase productivity and have a positive economic benefit of 46%. It is not that disabled people are incapable. It is that we, as a society, disable them by denying simple accommodations. And this is only perpetuated by the government's lack of public education and funding. Wouldn't it be better, not only for them, but for society at large, if disabled people were allowed to reach their full potential, invent technology, compose music, revolutionize science, change the world? So how do we welcome this future? Every disabled voice that can be amplified, speaking out about the challenges and how we can fix them, whether it be improving wheelchair access or turning off a distracting flickering light bulb, can increase our understanding and break through the prejudices. Take Stephen Hawking, who despite suffering from ALS, pioneered work in our understanding of the universe, all from his wheelchair-adapted labs. Or my personal icon, Dr. Temple Grandin, who despite having severe autism and being mute until the age of 5, being told she'll never say a word, now creates talks, educating people on the superpowers of being different. So, imagine you are that little boy again, centimeters from the school door. Maybe you'll become an engineer or a geneticist and cure cancer. Your whole future awaits you. But you cannot step up. Is this the future you want? Or will you reach out a hand, past the years of segregation and government failure, to your friends, your families, your children, and understand disabled does not mean incapable? Thank you.
Thank you for that very eloquent speech. Now I'd like to invite Olivia to explore this topic further with some questions.
Thank you, Charlie. And I want to say a really big thank you to you, because I know your speech is going to make people think more about this sort of thing in their day-to-day lives. So firstly, at the beginning of your speech, you stated that the UK government wasn't doing enough. But some would say that they are. There's a carer system in place, and people would claim that maybe this is enough. What do you have to say about that? Do you think it's good enough?
Well, I do agree that there is a carer system. The UK government has a £50 billion yearly budget for that. However, a recent census found that 70% of disabled people report being left in filth or dangerous conditions from a lack of staffing. And it's not that the carers are at fault. It is that there is not enough finance coming into these systems. There are reports of carers only having 20 minutes with each person. That's not enough to treat them as human beings and allow them to live their life.
I completely agree. So what would you suggest instead of this failing system?
Well, I'd say we definitely need to pressure the government to act more. And the best way to do this is to speak out and to educate. We need to go and vote for these campaigns, and we need to represent disabled people and make sure we listen to disabled activists. But I actually think the main takeaway is right now I have the privilege to speaking to a room full of people who could wake up tomorrow and choose to be kind, to reach out that hand. They can choose to help disabled people, and it doesn't have to cost anything. Give them a smile, give them a hand, ask them what you can do. And this is how we change the world. We listen and we help, and step by step, I think we can do it.
Thank you. Towards the beginning of your speech, you spoke about people with autism. So would you say that things like autism and ADHD are just people on the neurodiversity spectrum? I know some people believe this, but what is your opinion?
I think a disability is anything, either mental or physical, which can have a chronic impairment on your ability to function in life. And I definitely think that invisible disabilities, including neurodiverse disabilities, despite them having a lot of benefits, for example, with autism, you might excel in academia, there are definitely some challenges. And denying people from allowing themselves to use the label disabled denies them from getting the care, the diagnosis, the treatment that they need. So we need to include those neurodiverse disabilities as well.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously we all know that media plays a really big part in our lives. So do you think the representation that we have now is good enough, and how do you think we should change it in the future?
Well, I definitely think that there is not enough disability representation in media. This is 20% of our population, 20% of the bright ideas, 20% of the dreams, lives, goals of people. And they are such an underrepresented minority. And for example, social media, which is such a useful tool for activists, has cases of videos being flagged and demonetized for using the word wheelchair. And we need to put legislation in place to protect disabled creators and disabled businesses and allow them to have a voice.
So just like media, as you said in your speech, education plays a massive part in kind of shaping people's opinions. So how would you propose we integrate education about disabilities into young people's educations?
I think it's important from a young age to allow people to grow up in an environment with a lot of diversity, seeing that disabled people are very capable and that they are people, that they are humans with emotions and personalities, instead of being tokenized or put into some distant campaign, such as the 2021 campaign, which completely missed the mark. We need accurate daily representation of disabled people. And I think the best way to do this is for education. From a young age in schools, only 17% of teachers have a disability. And so children are growing up thinking that these people are to be isolated, they're aliens, and this can't be the case.
Yeah, completely. So just...
I think we might have to move into audience questions now, just ensure the smooth running. Thank you. Well, now I'd like to open up questions to the floor. So anyone have any questions? Yes.
Historically, what do you think created this prejudice against disabled people?
I think historically, especially after the first few world wars, then there was a lot of wounded veterans, and towards that time, a lot of the labour was manual labour, and prosthetics and other technologies weren't around in that time. So people couldn't work, and they were seen as incapable of doing anything. But now, obviously, technologies and accommodations have come a long way. Disabled people can do anything and everything. We just have to make sure that we are there and we are giving them a voice and giving them the help and support that they need to reach those same levels.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? I think we'll then move on to my concluding speech. That was great. Before I give my concluding speech, I'd like to give some thanks to a few people. Firstly, the ESU for ensuring the smooth running of today's competition, Churchill College, Cambridge for hosting us, the judges for their ever so valuable time, today's speaker, Sophia, and questioner, Olivia, and finally, you guys, the audience, who I know will take away the key points from Sophia's speech. To conclude, Sophia talked about how the government does not provide enough help for disabled people at the moment, and the problems suffered on daily basis in schools and in the workplaces. And I particularly enjoyed her circular structure, in which she started with her anecdote and then finished with the anecdote again, and how it tracked it through life and how society needs to change for the better in order to ensure equality and inclusion for everyone. Now, I know I've already thanked the ESU, but I'd like to thank them again, not just for this competition today, not just for the last 4 rounds, but over the last 3 years of my journey through ESU, having provided support and education along the way. It's been an honour to perform in this format and eventually make it up here to Cambridge. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has made this possible, and especially the judges who they take time out of their days to come and give us advice and education. And I think that's been so powerful for me over the last few years. So for the last time, thank you very much.